Ninox.
And yeah, Frank, then up to you about the new 3.10 release. Let's kick it off.
Hmm. Yeah, thank you, Tim. Thanks for having me. Yeah, I'm really excited to walk you through the new features we're bringing with release 3.10. So we have some big features in the not pipeline, because actually 3.10 will be released this evening. So I think everybody will have the chance to already check out what I will be presenting in a second. I also prepared a couple of slides just to give a quick overview of what's in the box. So let me share my screen. There we go. I guess everybody can see my screen now, my presentation. So release 3.10. Oops. So will be talking about three major features we're actually adding in this release to Ninox. The first one we call Pages. It's about crafting better user interfaces in Ninox for your end users. The second big feature is about modularization. So how can I break down a monolithic solution into multiple modules that work independently, but can also talk to each other and get connected to each other. The third big feature we are adding with this release is finally email integration. So I'll just explain each of the features, and then actually we'll have the chance to see it live in action with a short demo. And then after this, we should have some time also to cover all the questions that stack up during the presentation. So don't be shy, just write into the Q&A section, and we'll discuss this in the end of the webinar. So the first feature we call Pages. So Pages is born out of the idea, how can builders, users who create solutions with Ninox, give better user experience for their end users. Yeah, so everybody, I think, knows how Ninox works at the moment. It's very much driven by the idea that you define a data model, define kind of the tables you need to manage your information, define all the fields you need. And then Ninox does some auto magic and derives the user interface. And of course, you can adjust this in a certain way, but it's a very open system. And with this openness and flexibility, it also gives a lot of controls and interactions that are possible, which are maybe not desired for your end users, because maybe you want to build something that is really simple or has a very clear user flow. And this we will enable with Pages. So you can consider basically a page as a white space, so blank sheet of paper, giving you all the option to put your data on, your widgets on, and data from certain tables or interactions like buttons. And you can create dashboards like you can see in this example here, for example, or much more closed user experiences and application-like interfaces. The second big thing about the release 3.10 is about how can you design a complex solution out of individual modules, and how can you also reuse those modules. Yeah, so we have seen in a lot of customer situations that customers who use Ninox extensively to cover maybe their whole operations tend to build also very large and complex databases, and that makes it really hard to maintain it over the time. And the second drawback is you cannot really pick one part of that solution and deploy it, for example, for another customer. So reuse is really limited. With modularization, we will break this up and give you the option to create solutions which consist of multiple databases. And of course, then the question is, how can you still integrate those disparate databases? And that's why we created a mechanism to connect tables between databases. And this new integration of databases will actually support all the features you are used to from Ninox. Yeah? So when you connect, for example, an invoice to a customer from a CRM database, you will have all the navigation options, you will have full scripting support, and we even created new scripting construct like do as database, which allows you to execute code within another database or query data from another database. So this integration is very tight and very intuitive, very much like you are used to from normal Linux relations. And the third big feature we are bringing is about integrating emails. We have seen a lot of customers who use third-party services to bring in their email communication into the Ninox solution. This is very useful, for example, in CRM use cases, or when you have any type of customer interaction or interaction with suppliers. Often it's very useful to just see what was the communication with the customer in the past, or even run workflows triggered by incoming emails. With email integration, we will enable inbound email workflows. And it basically works in the following way. So Ninox generates an email address and inbox, which you can register as a BCC or as a forwarder in your email at your email provider. And then any email which hits the service will actually run through a series of steps. So it will run through a security check, and then it will be splitted into its individual parts, like the metadata, like the recipients, for example, or the sender, the subject. We will also extract the body of the email, and we will extract all the attachments which are coming with the email and store it into a Ninox database, which is automatically created in your workspace. Finally, I wanted to talk about modules. So I already explained modularization, which is coming in release 3.10. We are also currently working on actually bringing standardized modules, which you can use to much quicker build new solutions. And we will be starting with CRM-related processes. So customer relationship management is one of the first modules. We are also going beyond CRM and providing an offer and invoice module. And those modules will be supported by certain base modules, like the email module, which allows to see customer communication within the context of CRM. Dativ, which is kind of a German market thing, gives you integration to the accounting system. Then we have a simple document management module and also module to manage your employees. Those modules are now coming along 3.10 and are currently built for the German-speaking audience, but we will be working in the next months to also support all international customers. So now I think it's time for a demo. And let me just quickly jump into my Ninox workspace. I'm here on a Ninox private cloud environment and already prepared a very clean workspace for the presentation. And we will build kind of a very simple CRM solution and connect the customers with our employees. And for that, I will start actually with one of our templates, the HR master data template. For sake of simplicity, I'll just rename it to HR and install it. So let's check it out. This is setting up for a second, and then it gives me a list of employees with a lot of information about those employees. And we'll just use this now as a basis, and we'll create our simple CRM. And I do it actually from scratch here just to display the new functionalities we've created. So let's go into CRM. And the first thing I would like to do is to add a list of customers. Yeah, what do we have? For example, company and certain address information fields like zip and city. And we will also use maybe a website and an email, maybe also phone. So basic customer master data, which we can use to maintain our customers. And let's put here Ninox with Monbijou Platz 5 in Berlin. And I'll also enter an email address, which we will utilize in the next steps. I'll use my personal email here. Okay, cool. There we go. So this is a very simple list of customers. Now, typically in a CRM or in a sales process, you would assign customers to one of your employees, right? To maintain the customer relationship, to have a key account owner. And since we don't have employees here in this database, but we already do have our HR database, let's just utilize this. So how do I do this? I just go to edit fields. And normally I would go to relationships, but I don't have an employee list here, right? Now with release 3.10, we have this new option, all databases in current workspace, which gives me access to all the other databases which are already created in my workspace. And I can just click into it and see all the tables here, right? So let's drag the employee relationship and save it. So this really works like a normal Ninox relationship, and it actually gives me all the records from this other database. And let's assign Clara, for example, to this customer. And I can even go into it just by clicking onto the relationship. I'm now basically opening the form of this connected database. Yeah, so you see for the end user, there's literally no difference. Yeah, it just feels like a normal internal relationship in our CRM database. So this information I can also just use as I'm used to. For example, if I would like to see the name of the assigned employee, I just would go to show column, go to my employee, and add the name. Call this employee, and there we go. So as you can see, for the end user, really no different, is just as intuitive as any normal Linux relationship. Let's assume we also want to see all the employees here in the CRM database, just to give a quick overview for our sales guys who don't have access to the HR system. That's also very easy to achieve. I'll make use of the new pages feature in this case. Pages I can create when I click on the small caret here. Will give me a new option, plus new page. And I can rename that, and let's call it employees. And also give it a nice icon maybe. Have my employees. And save this. And now I can utilize a view element to bring in the data from this connected database. And to make this happen, I will actually now make use of this new language construct, which is called do as database. And then I put the name of the database, in this case, HR. And within this code block, I can execute any code which would normally run with inside HR. And I will just do a select employees to get the list of all my employees. And maybe let's just extend it to illustrate here the use case. I'll also add a simple search functionality, put it on top here, and add some logic to the query. So first I get out the value of my search. So this gives me the value of the search field's input. And then I will use this in the select just to limit the results it. So there we go. We read out the value of the search field. We jump into the database HR. We select employees where the name is roundabout like what we've entered into the search field. Okay, let's try it out. There you go. It's actually working as a search dashboard, basically. So to maybe cover all the features we invented with or added with Pages, because it's about simplifying the user flow and also limiting quite of kind of the options a user has within a solution. We also added some options to control the design here of the side panel. For example, I can hide the calendar view, can hide the search view, can even hide this start screen of the database, and then give a very kind of very closed experience for our end users. So this is how Pages work in relation with also connecting to different databases. And now I'll jump to the third feature, our email integration. And here's maybe a small change. We unified this user icon with the options menu. So now I have direct access from my user icon to the Ninox settings. And within the settings, we have now a section integrations with the tab email setup. And this will first ask my Ninox private cloud for all its workspaces. And the way it works now is I select the workspace, the target workspace. In this case, I think it was release demo. And I can give the inbox a name. Use a very simple name, just email. Oops. And I can also add some prefix here to the actual email address that Ninox will generate. And finally, I need to acknowledge that we are running all incoming emails through AWS servers in Dublin. And then I will generate that inbox. Okay, cool. So here are some details about the newly created inbox. It basically has an address, which is really important because I need to include it now. Normally, I now would go to my email provider settings and register this as a forwarder, for example, for the sales ad or info ad address. In this demo, I'll just simulate the use case by explicitly adding this in an email, which I will now send out in a second. So let's take a look at our workspace. What happened here? We have a new module, a new database for emails. It basically consists of a table of incoming emails. And now I want to try out, if this actually works. So let's send an email, put this address into the VCC, and let's send it to, in this case, info@ninox.com. Just give it the subject and write some text. And I'll also add an attachment. Let's send this out. So this will run now behind the scenes, of course, through our outgoing email provider to the incoming email inbox on AWS. It will run the email through a security check. Yeah, so we will make sure that there is no malicious attachment, for example, or certain types of script injection attacks. Also, all this will be scanned for. And then finally, our email gateway will actually create a record in this database and store all the information here, which is rendered here on the first page or first tab. But we can also take a look behind the scenes and see all the fields. So this is basically the metadata extracted from the email. Subject BCC. We don't actually receive here because this is kind of hidden. And then we see all the attachments. And this is the file I originally attached to the email. This is kind of from my footer, from my signature, the Ninox logo. And here you see body.html. So what we do is we do not actually store the email text or email contents within the database. We rather store it as an attachment, which will make sure that your database gets not loaded up as long data stored in database fields. Nevertheless, we use this attachment to actually render out everything from the email here. There's also some convenience functions. You can, of course, directly respond to the sender, for example. And now the next step for us, of course, would be to integrate the emails with our CRM. So how do we do this? Again, I will make use of the, some error from the template, which we don't need. Again, I will make use of our new feature. So I will take a look at all the databases in my workspace. I will look for the CRM, and I want to assign emails to customers so that I can see the email communication within the customer context. And there we go. So this would now hopefully give me, there it is, access to my customer. And of course, I could manually select the customer, but it would be much better if this assignment happens automatically, right? Since this is a normal Ninox database, we can also add logic to it and create triggers. And what I would do now is I would create a trigger that checks every email for its sender address and looks into the CRM database to find the related customer. So how do we do this? We extract the sender, the from field basically, from our email. In the next step, we jump into the CRM and we look for customers where the email address of the customer is somehow contained in our sender field. So we do have an, I believe, email field in the customer table. And we will check if our from field contains that string. And we just want a single record because we just want to assign one customer. And we will just use the result to actually assign it to the customer field. So in our email, we have created a customer field, which is a reference to two customers in the CRM. In order to figure out the right customer, we will look at all customers and find the one who has an email address which is similar to our sender. That's basically the logic. I hope it works this time as expected. And let's just try it out again and create a new email as two. Put our Ninox address as BCC. And let's go for it. So again, that email runs through the whole process. So it just might take a couple of seconds or even a minute until this will arrive and hopefully automatically appear here and also bring up the selected customer. So there we have the new email. And there you go. Actually assigned a customer, can directly jump into it. And we can also, of course, look at our CRM and see all the email communication which is related to that customer. So this is it from our quick demo of the features, just to again cover everything we did. So we created an HR database just from the template, and then we created a simple CRM connecting customers to records from the HR. We also used Pages to build a very simple user interface to look for employees. And we set up an email integration and connected that to the CRM. And all of that we did in just under 30 minutes. So you can see that all those features are very easy to use, very fast to integrate. So I hope you have a lot of fun with it. And Tim, what does the chat say? Do we have questions?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think it's the game changer. My point of view, if everybody's a different opinion, please reach out to me, then we can discuss it. And I think I have kind of like of a déjà vu to the German webinar 2 hours ago. The first question is kind of like the same, and the question is which of these new features is available in which plan?
Yeah, that's actually a good question. Unfortunately, I did not cover this on the slide. So Pages will be available this evening on our entire product line. So on all plans, you will have access to Pages. Modularization is available on the enterprise plan, so on our private cloud and on-premise deployments. And email integration is available on the enterprise plan in private cloud because it's very tightly coupled to the private cloud architecture.
Perfect. Thanks. Then one question, also the same regarding modularization. Currently, or like we implemented it, modularization is only available in one workspace. And so the question is there a plan to extend it kind of like to access database tables from a different workspace or a different database?
Yeah. So I would like to start actually with the topic of modularization. Oops, I stumbled across this word today very often. So modularization is kind of a very long and important roadmap item for us. Yeah, so we start with modularization basically with the features we are presenting in this release, which enables the connection of databases in the same workspace. But we will extend on this in several ways. We will support this in kind of the process of splitting databases into modules in a better way. We will extend the feature around this simple type of integration. But we also see that there is need to interconnect databases from separate workspaces, though this interconnection will be very likely in a different form, because when you have disparate workspaces, then, for example, you cannot guarantee that the roles and right management is configured in the same way. So this integrating databases over separate workspaces would be much more like a synchronization between databases, while this feature we are building here is a very tight coupling of modules within the same workspace. So this will most likely be limited to one workspace also in the future.
Perfect. Thanks a lot. So the next two questions I can directly answer. So the webinar will be recorded. And also there's a question for a Ninox specialist who can build up the database for somebody. you can have a look at our website on ninox.com in the partner section, or just reach out to me with the use case to partner at ninox.com. And so I'll hand over, Frank, the next questions again for you regarding performance.
Mhm.
How is the performance if I connect another database instead of kind of like the table connection until we are doing it now?
Yeah. So it for the end user in normal use of the connections or relationships, there won't be any difference in performance. Of course, in certain situations, you need to keep in mind, are you crossing database boundaries or so? But in all those normal setups, it won't make any difference. It also has advantages, of course, because if you have a very large solution that is separated in multiple modules, then it tends to also lead to smaller databases, which is beneficial for performance.
Perfect. Then congratulations on the great product, amazing. And combined with the question if it's possible to add these custom headers like in the email module, not only for the receiving of emails, or if it's planned to also use this for sending out emails with the headers and the integration, especially for automation purposes.
Yeah. So with regards to sending emails, we did not make any changes in this release. So you can, of course, use the normal send email functionality to send out emails as used to. You could, of course, include the outgoing invoices also into an email integration by just adding this inbox as BCC when sending emails. Yeah, so then you will also have a full record of outgoing, not invoices, but emails. And this can be, I think, very helpful.
Perfect. Then, Frank, you showed the example for finding the customer. Is it possible that we can use within the DOS database part variables which were declared outside before, or only the variables which were declared inside DOS database?
Yeah, all the also showed in the example. So the variables which are declared outside of the scope are visible within the scope of this database. Just to look at it. So this is exactly why I asked for the search field outside of the block, but I utilize as within the block, if that was the question.
Perfect. Let's see if it comes to a follow-up question. So then a question regarding the search. Is it also possible to analyze the content of the emails to data fields in the database?
To analyze the contents, yeah, kind of. So you can take a quick look, but don't get scared behind the scenes here of the email module. So this is all built on top of the Linux platform. So it's kind of readable or open source code. And so the first three functions look a bit scary, but this is basically just code to extract a representation of the sender or recipient from what is actually stored in the fields. Just to show it. So usually email clients send something like this. Yeah, so some plain text name and then the email address. In order to have a nice format here, we use those first functions. And then we use an iframe to actually display the email. Yeah, this iframe helps us to protect Ninox from the contents of the email. And we use this new function, file URL, which gives us the content of body HTML. But I believe we do also have functions to directly retrieve the content of an attached file. So this would be possible.
Perfect. Then another question regarding the email module, or is it planned to release the email module to other plans beyond enterprise?
That is currently not planned.
Okay. Then a question regarding the top menu. So can the top menu, or was it shown that the top menu can also be disabled?
So what we can disable is basically those 3 items plus the whole navigation. So we can also hide actually the sidebar navigation, which brings us into some sort of kiosk mode, right? So in this case, the user would not have any means of leaving the context. But you cannot hide the title bar. That's not possible at the moment.
And I think in addition to that, within Pages, it's possible, as you see it here on the page, that the classic Ninox icons with the trash can, the duplicate, and everything is also disabled or not visible.
Exactly. So when you look at it, this is how a page looks. So it has much less clutter. Though it would support tabs. If you add tabs here to the page, it would also support multiple tabs. And remember the normal Ninox view, giving users all sorts of options here. Also the option to create new records, not really in control of the administrator and so on.
Perfect. Then a question for clarification. Yes, the professional or modularization is not available in the professional plan. That's an enterprise feature only. And then we have a question, how about dynamic choice fields using DOS database?
This works, but I think I would not immediately recommend it, but more from an architectural view. Yeah, so, but basically it works. You can do that.
Perfect. So then I don't see any more questions. So I'm trying. Thank you very much, Frank, for being here and showing these exciting new features. I think Game Changer is absolutely worth it. So as you mentioned earlier, the release will be available in the evening, German time. I think we have also customers from the US, so they're in daylight time. Then enjoy playing around with the new 3.10 features and looking forward to the next webinars and seeing you there. Have a nice day.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.
Ninox.